All right, sit back, relax, and enjoy this new content, and let's re-engage together.
The whole world was horrified when news broke about the Brazilian Vopass airline crash that killed all 62 passengers on board on Friday. Unfortunately, the news just got even worse. Doctors on board the ill-fated flight bound for Sao Paulo's International Airport were convinced they discovered a cure for cancer, and clinical trials were in an advanced stage. Now, with the doctors tragically silenced by unseen forces, clinical trials have been halted, and surviving researchers acknowledge that crucial knowledge was lost with their untimely deaths. Mainstream media are working desperately to censor this information on behalf of Big Pharma, but the evidence is damning, and we need to work together to spread this information as far and wide as possible.
I'm saddened to report this, but it is true that Dr. Rashid Buttar has passed away. He reportedly died on Thursday, I think it was Thursday evening. I've confirmed this now with several people who were close to him, and a truth teller, and frankly a ferocious warrior in the space of health freedom. Although, of course, he was defamed, maliciously maligned by the pharma-controlled establishment media. Why? Why did Dr. Buttar pass at such a young age? Explained that only a few weeks before he was in the ICU for 6 days with a diagnosis of both stroke and myocarditis, with symptoms and biomarkers consistent with adverse effects from the mRNA jabs, which, of course, he did not take.
When they couldn't suppress the story that way, they actually went after Dr. Mel Bruchet, who was the first to break the story, and police showed up at his door and put him in a psychiatric institution. Now, while in the psychiatric institution, they gave Dr. Mel Bruchet, who's 81 years old, they gave him medications that are known to cause strokes in anyone over the age of 65. This is medical, premeditated murder. Dr. Bruchet managed to escape, but in British Columbia, Canada, if you escape a psychiatric facility without the permission of the director of that facility, then you get a warrant for your recapture.
They have controlled and captured our health agencies. Every single policy that they have issued out of those agencies the entire pandemic has failed, is failing, and will continue to fail. It must stop. Every time. And so I see all of you guys. I am so grateful to see America showing up. That's what we do. We are Americans and we resist tyranny.
Freedom to let doctors be doctors. The care of patients should not be dictated by the government. My healthcare system banned me from using these drugs.
Dr. Sebi, aka Alfred Bowman. He was killed in police custody. He was known for his work on natural cures for cancer, diabetes, and AIDS. We have Dr. John Marshall. He was a practitioner. He was a fourth-generation Marine, and he was accidentally drowned while out for a run. Dr. Rod Floyd apparently committed suicide in his sauna. His wife doesn't believe that. Dr. Bradstreet, fatal gunshot wounds to the chest. Dr. Gaynor, found in the woods. His body was ruled a suicide. Dr. Sievers, 2 gunmen. Dr. Holt and Dr. Hindall. Their bodies were discovered and it's still under scrutiny. Dr. Fitzpatrick's, he was mysteriously disappeared. Mary Bouvier, murdered in her home. The German Conference, 20 doctors poisoned and rushed to the hospital. Dr. Pass died of alleged suicide. Dr. Block, alleged suicide. Dr. Vincer, a 3-car crash. Dr. Grossman fell off his balcony while trying to get his keys.
And here.
Dr. Grossman falling off his bike, major head trauma. Dr. Ernstein, attacked and murdered. Dr. Vanette, Body was found after her dog had been hit by a car, but her body wasn't found for days later. Dr. Hurley, another bicycle accident. Dr. Mileto and his wife were attacked. He survived, his wife did not. Professor Alan Clark, body found hanging in the woods. Dr. Cheryl DeBoer, a HIV and cancer researcher. She was found in a culvert with a plastic bag wrapped around her head. Polgi went missing, then her body was found in the ocean. Dr. Rasmussen, body was stabbed 30 times. Satori committed suicide. Dr. Sauer, gunman walked in and killed him. Dr. Hong, murdered. Dr. De Silva was reported missing, and then his body was found.
And that was, since you last spoke to me, we learned about the apparent suicide of Dr. Jeff Bradstreet, and you can educate our listeners now as to who he was and why people, including his family, are asking questions about his death, the anti-vaccine campaigner and Dr. Jeff Bradstreet. So a lot of people asking for your thoughts on him and that story, Rima. What have you got to say on it?
What I have to say is that as of my last update on this topic, it's not just Dr. Jeff Bradstreet. 8 physicians have been assassinated in the United States and Mexico. 3 in Mexico, and they were with 2 of their employees, 2 administrative employees. Their car was riddled with bullets, and the car was found empty. Bodies were presented to the families of those 5 people, including the 3 doctors, and the bodies had no bullet holes and their DNA did not match. And the Mexican government said, oh, well, yeah, right, that's true, but just forget it. In the United States, an additional 6 doctors have been murdered. And I say Dr. Bradstreet was murdered as well. It's fairly hard to commit suicide by firing a rifle at your own chest. It's just kind of awkward. It generally works, but it's not a favored suicide methodology.
It certainly is not.
No. Nor is killing yourself with a hammer, as happened to one of the doctors.
Dr. Bird, reported missing, body found in his car sometime later. Dr. Shi, stabbed to death. Dr. Zaidana, believed he was poisoned, died after a serious illness. Dr. Gonzalez, labeled a homicide. Dr. Lena Bolaños and Dr. Richard Field, gunmen in the house, both of them were murdered. And that's just some of them. Considering that holistic medicine is such a niche group, that's a very small group to have so many very strange deaths occur in them. Not very many coincidences happen like that. Only around our government.
Viewer discretion advised.
This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.